Flash Season 9 was one of the worst seasons of The Flash, arguably the worst, but there were still two good episodes. The first good episode was Season 9, Episode 9, titled It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To, where Arrow returns to help Barry and Wally defeat Bloodwork on Barry's birthday. This was an amazing episode which, if you didn't know, was directed by the actor for Caitlin, Danielle Panabaker. The other amazing episode of Season 9 was Season 9, Episode 10, titled A New World Part 1, Reunions, where we come full circle from the beginning of The Flash to the night Barry's mother died. I made a video around 5 months ago where I fixed this specific episode. I thought for an episode meant to be the full circle episode of the show, it could have been way better. In that video, I basically said that Season 9, Episode 10 should have been the series finale and made a completely new storyline to discuss it. In this video, I'm going to explain my completely new and better storyline for Flash Season 9, where the full circle episode is the finale of The Flash. That doesn't mean you need to watch the old video to understand this one. This video isn't a continuation, just based around a similar idea. Though I would appreciate it if you checked out that video after this one. Okay, let's start. First of all, this is a completely new storyline, meaning no Red Death and Cobalt Blue. And in my Season 9, the full circle episode where Barry goes back to the night his mother died is going to be the series finale, with a couple of adjustments of course. I'll first explain the basic storyline and then go episode by episode explaining what happens in my version of Season 9. So the storyline for this new version of Season 9 is a fractured, damaged timeline. Throughout the course of the season, anomalies occur, like mysterious disappearances, changes in the timeline which requires Barry to investigate why this is happening. This gives us a chance to see Barry using his CSI skills again, which we haven't seen much of in the later seasons. Since the timeline is basically breaking apart, metahuman villains from the past are displaced through time, which makes them a target for Barry to beat again. Barry defeats these villains through each of the episodes while investigating the fractured timeline. Similar to what Arrow did in Season 8, we get reminded of old seasons. Then, in the final episode, he's forced to travel back in time to the night his mother dies to take the place of the original timeline Flash. This was the mystery he had been trying to solve. The timeline was broken because the new timeline that the Reverse Flash created was set in place, so the original timeline Flash was erased. This created a fractured timeline since there was no one to keep events as they were and be in the place of the original timeline Flash. And since this is such a big event known as a fixed point, it created a broken timeline with displaced metahuman villains and more. Barry goes back in time and takes place of the OG timeline Flash, which sets the timeline back to normal. Now I'll explain the entire story episode by episode, and trust me, I have ideas that I didn't mention yet that I'll explain for each episode that are just as interesting. My story is probably going to have some minor time travel inconsistencies, but honestly at this point the entire show has time travel inconsistencies. Episode 1 of my version of Season 9 will be titled Run It Back. Similar to how the first episode of Season 9 was a time loop episode, this will also be a time loop episode. The first effect of the fractured timeline that I previously explained. Barry is stuck in a time loop. But this time, he's completely on his own in the time loop. In the real episode, Iris and Barry both face the time loop, but this time only Barry faces the time loop. There's a new speedster villain on the loose, faster and crueler than anyone he's faced in years. A twisted speedster who calls himself Inertia. After Thawne was defeated in the previous season's finale, a speedster villain called Inertia has come from the future. Inertia is no random villain. He's part of the Thawne bloodline from the future. His name is Thaddeus Thawne, and he plans to kill everyone Barry loves and Barry to get revenge for Eobard Thawne's defeat. Inertia instantly kills the entirety of Team Flash on the first day in the most brutal way. Barry goes after him, emotionally distraught, and instantly gets caught by Inertia. Inertia kills him with the vibrating hand to his chest. The second day, he does what he can to stop the attack. He sets up countermeasures, puts the building on lockdown, and programs Gideon to scan for unusual Speed Force signatures. He locks doors, disables exits, arms every defense system Star Labs has. But it doesn't matter. Inertia kills everyone again. So I want this episode to be in the same style as season 5 episode 14, where Noro kept reversing time to prevent Cicada from killing a member of Team Flash. The loops become torture. Every time Barry dies, he wakes up more broken, more desperate. He tries splitting up the team. He tries facing Inertia alone in the open city, thinking maybe he can lead him away, but nothing works. But when Barry starts paying attention to the loops, he realizes who Inertia is. Therefore, he knows Inertia is breaking the rules of the Speed Force, meaning that Barry can just get time rates to deal with Inertia. Barry fights Inertia and is able to deal with him because he has studied him for hundreds of loops now. Barry lures the time rates, which takes Inertia back to the future, and the loop ends, since Barry survives. At this point, the timeline is broken, but Barry still hasn't realized it yet. Episode 2 will be titled Zoom Returns. Other than the abomination that was the series finale, we haven't seen much of Zoom after the season 2 finale. He is arguably the best villain on the show, so I was thinking one episode of season 9 could be dedicated to him. Zoom is thrown into the future, right before he is killed by time rates. We follow him as he observes Barry. He realizes how much faster Barry has become, and then Zoom injects himself with a ton of V9 to compensate. During this time, Barry is investigating the strange occurrences that are happening due to the breaking of the timeline. The mysterious lightning strikes, red skies, and more. Zoom then kidnaps Allegra, Chester, and Joe. Barry goes after him, but then Joe disappears. This is because of the timeline breaking, but Barry assumes that it is Zoom's fault and has an epic fight with him, similar to when Barry was absolutely destroyed by Zoom in Season 2, Episode 6, Enter Zoom. But this time Zoom and Barry have switched roles. Barry then throws Zoom back to where he should be in the timeline. Then, Allegra and Chester inform Barry how Joe's disappearance was not Zoom's fault, and that it was actually something different. Barry creates a board similar to the one he made to investigate his mother's murder. He uses it to map out the mysterious things that have been happening, including Joe's disappearance and Zoom traveling to the future. Allegra and Chester are scared because of what happened with Zoom kidnapping them, and they decide to leave Star Labs. So now the team is just Caitlin, Iris, and Barry. Since Joe has disappeared, Cecile leaves to take care of Jenna. Also, in my version of Season 9, Caitlin just accepts that Killer Frost is gone, and Keone never happens. Episode 3 will be called Exile. Argus receives a telepathic distress call from Grodd. Cisco, who works at Argus, decided that he should go to Barry for help. This is just my way of bringing back Cisco, but it's a good episode concept. So you probably don't remember since The Flash Season 9 was so bad, but they mentioned that Grodd was stuck for 3 years in a forest.
After your crisis, the gorillas in Gorilla City lost their sentience and were scattered across your lawless world. Grodd never found his tribe because you left him with little more than a pat on the back, arrogantly thinking that teaching him your hero's way was enough.
He couldn't find any sentient gorillas because the crisis from Season 6 changed the timeline. So now, Grodd was alone and he hates Barry for it. He wants revenge from Barry. Cisco decides to take Barry's help and also warn him. Barry has a reunion with Cisco along with Caitlin, and then Barry goes after Grodd. He realizes that 3 years messed up his mind too much and that Grodd could not be reasoned with. They fight and Grodd is taken to Argus. Cisco promises that he will make sure that Argus takes good care of Grodd. This doesn't have much to do with the fractured timeline, but one of my goals with this new storyline for the season is to feel nostalgic and reminiscent of old storylines. Cisco decides to stay back with Barry and Caitlin and Iris until Barry has figured out what is going on with the strange occurrences. Episode 4 will be called Wells Beyond Time. Timeless Wells returns for one episode. Since he can basically traverse time as he wants, he is able to feel the fractured timeline and comes to Barry to inform him. So Wells, Cisco, Caitlin, and Barry work together to fix the fractured timeline and observe changes. Barry informs Wells what he has found. At the same time, tons of OG metahumans appear, like Peekaboo, Weather Wizard, Atom Smasher, Tarpit, and more, which Barry also has to deal with. Then, at the end of the episode, Timeless Wells fades away like Joe did. Episode 5 will be called The Singularity. Barry gets an alert and looks up to find a singularity above Central City. Everything around him becomes frozen, and the singularity is surrounded by lightning. Barry is in flash time now. He brings Cisco into flash time. Cisco explains that the singularity must be from the Speed Force, so leaving flash time would result in the city being enveloped by the singularity in an instant. Barry brings Caitlin into flash time, who tells Barry that this must be a side effect of the timeline breaking, and that Barry has to close it. Enter Flash Time was one of the best episodes of The Flash and my personal favorite, so I wanted an episode to be similar to that in Season 9. Barry eventually somehow closes a singularity, and that's it for the episode. For episodes 6 and 7, I don't really have many ideas, so I thought these episodes could be filler. I told ChatGPT to generate a CW Flash meta villain, and it came up with a meta called Pulse. Basically, episode 6 would start off with Barry at a crime scene investigating strange deaths. Pulse's powers are draining bioelectricity from people around him to survive. He used to be a paramedic before being affected by the particle accelerator and then being sent into a coma. After waking up, people in Pulse's vicinity have been dying. But this is unintentional, so Barry has to deal with this meta without imprisoning him during episode 6. Basically appealing to him or whatever, since Pulse is killing people unintentionally. But for episode 7, I basically have nothing, so I guess another filler episode. Episode 8 will be called Enter the Speed Force. This is probably my favorite concept for an episode. I really wish we could have seen it in The Flash, but if they made this episode, I think it would have been the highest rated episode on The Flash. In the previous episode, Barry determines that the timeline breaking must be linked to the Speed Force, so he decides to enter the Speed Force in this episode. We see tons of old cast members reprise their roles as the Speed Force takes different forms while talking to Barry. At first, the Speed Force is welcoming to Barry, but then it switches up and blames Barry for the fractured timeline. He's trapped in the Speed Force and forced to relive some of the worst moments of his life. For example, when Zoom breaks his back, Savitar running him through Central City, the death of his father and mother, the death of Nora, Godspeed destroying Barry when he was losing his speed, Oliver's death, Dawn destroying Barry in that stadium, and more. It is really emotional. Barry is even tortured by some of his worst enemies during the episode, until finally, Barry convinces the Speed Force that the fractured timeline isn't his fault, and he is able to escape. This is an episode that I think would have been awesome to see in Season 9. Episode 9 will be titled, It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To. The Real Flash Season 9 Episode 9 was an episode where we saw Wally, Diggle, Oliver, and Bloodwork all return. That episode was one of the best 2 episodes in Season 9, so I think that it is good as is and can just be placed into Season 9 as filler. And it also makes sense since in the episode it's Barry's birthday, and he feels he shouldn't be living while so many around him died for him.
You have the power of a god. You can bring me back from the dead.
No, I can't. Not while there is a part of you that doesn't want to go back.
It's my birthday. Today. I didn't want to do anything, but Iris threw this party, and I should have been grateful. Happy. All I could think about was everyone who couldn't be there.
You lost a lot of people this year.
Yeah. Frost died fighting Deathstorm. Caitlin died trying to save her. I fight some random mad scientist. I get 3 extra years to live. You know everything now, right, Oliver? Tell me, how is it right I'm alive and they're dead?
In the real episode, it seems kinda random for Barry to start feeling like this, but in my version of Season 9, Barry has just come from the Speed Force and he is reminded of all the pain and death that has happened around him. So it would make sense for Barry to feel guilty as he did in this episode. Episode 10 will be called Gone in a Flash. In my previous video related to this topic, I fixed the Full Circle episode and renamed it Time's End since whatever the real episode title was one of the worst titles ever. But honestly, Time's End seems a little boring for the title of the finale, so for this video I changed the title to Gone in a Flash. In my version of Season 9, the Full Circle episode is the season finale, so my version will have only 10 episodes, same number as Arrow's final season. So this episode, which I'll call the Full Circle episode, had some time of the episode dedicated to the Cobalt Blue arc, but that will be cut out since my version of Season 9 doesn't have Cobalt Blue. Here's what happens. Barry and Iris are together at home. Iris disappears. In the same way Joe and Wells disappeared. Caitlin and Cisco and Barry talk for a couple minutes and then Barry figures the mystery out. He realizes that the fractured timeline is due to Barry not taking the place of the OG timeline Flash. He travels back to the night that his mother died. Thawne is also there. Barry and Thawne have a drink. Barry is hit by a car and saved by his parents, same as what happened in the show. But that's it, we don't see any more of Nora and Henry after they talk in the hospital, because otherwise they would seem too obsessed with Barry. That night goes as it does, with Barry having to fight with Reverse Flash and letting his mother die. And the first 25 minutes of the episode is now done. Now, Barry comes back to 2023. The timeline is almost set back in place. Iris, Joe, and Wells return, because the time anomalies are now gone. The weather phenomena is gone. Barry has now taken the place of the original timeline Flash to end the timeline breaking. Then Barry says that he has one final thing left to do. He runs back in time and throws the lightning bolt that gave him his powers. Now the episode ends in a montage of the next few months, with Barry's voiceover saying his final speech. Where Nora is born, they have a party with Cisco, Caitlin, Joe, Iris, and other side characters. Diggle could also be there, and then Barry has his final run. So yeah, that's my storyline for Season 9 of The Flash. I've also gotten everything wrong with The Flash video coming eventually. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe.